once again, everyone. I seem to have been going through this document for about 500 years now, but hopefully we can get it finished tonight. It's currently just gone 8 in the PM for me here in the UK. It's going dark early now. It's dark now. Winter's coming. I don't like winter. I really don't like winter. Anyway, okay. All right, we're going to do part 3 and part 4. They're quite small parts. If you've been in all my lives over the last few days, you'll know that we've gone through the defence document, the memorandum that Richard Allen's defence has written, and it is a grand total of 136 pages, all of which, though, comes from the prosecution's discovery. And if you notice, they said it several times throughout this document that they only received a big bulk of stuff on September the 8th. So they've not even gone through everything yet. And they believe that there is exculpatory evidence that will clear Richard Allen and will prove that he is an innocent man, and they've got the wrong man locked up awaiting trial. So I'm going through this document with a fine-tooth comb. It sounds crazy, absolutely crazy, but it is part of the case now. So moving forward, this is part of the case, and the prosecution will have to respond. And it could well, very, very likely, extremely likely, become part of the trial. So I've taken this very seriously, and I've read the document and kind of given my opinion as we've gone through. And there's some things that I think, oh, that's bad, that's a red flag. There's other things that I think, no, that's not evidence. You know, we talked yesterday about like people ringing in tips, saying that Brad Holder's Facebook gives him a bad vibe, or you know, you can't. That's not evidence. That's not evidence. No, that's not evidence. Something just giving you a bad vibe or something like that. No. So they have come with receipts. Some of them raise a lot of questions. Others I can take with a huge grain of salt. So also what we're going to do tonight is talk about the timeline, because there is a discrepancy in what Richard Allen said in 2017 when he rang the tip line. He rang the tip line to say he was on the trails back in the early days. And the reason why he was arrested in October 2022, allegedly, is because the person who was reviewing the case and, you know, gone back to early days, found this man called Richard M. Allen, who hadn't been properly investigated. So they started investigating him, and hey presto, it ultimately ended in an arrest and a massive search of his property. And it's that search warrant that this 136-page document is countering, because what the defence wants is what is called a Franks hearing. And a Franks hearing is held when a search warrant has been issued falsely, that there's been exculpatory evidence that the judge hasn't been privy to, or there is falsified information within that search warrant. And that is exactly what the defence are claiming. So they're asking the judge for a Franks hearing. So this 136-page document is the written evidence, the written argument, really, as to why a Franks hearing is needed. In addition to this 136-page document, there's a whole bunch of exhibits that we are not privy to as the public. We're not privy to that. So the judge has got a lot to go through. And of course, the prosecution will have the opportunity to rebut this. And I hope that the rebuttal is made public. Hopefully. So very shortly, we'll get into this document. We're also going to, there was a question last night about how close things are, like how close the cemetery is, how close things are to each other. So I've got the map now that I've plotted all the kind of important bits on the map. So we'll do that as well, because that kind of fits in with this part 3. So CCK is catching up on the lives. There's been quite a few over the last few days. Linda's been awake all night. Oh dear, humanity is lost, it is. Hi, Holly. Stella. You got a question. How long do the prosecution have? They normally have like 30 days or something around those, but it's ultimately down to the judge to decide how long the prosecution have to respond. But it's generally 30 days. But don't quote me on that. Hi, Liplock No More in Arkansas. Hi, Joe. Purple AJ. What else have we got in? Debbie. Rito. Can't see that. Gina. Michelle. What a great name. What else have we got in? Twisted. Hello. What do we all think so far? That's a good question. What do we all think so far? Richard Allen, or does this new theory sound more plausible given the crime scene? I'm on the fence, to be honest. Yeah, I'm remaining open-minded. Like I said just before, there's some things in this documentation that's given me pause for thought. That's made me think, could that be true? Could there be more suspects here? Is Richard Allen innocent? I'm keeping an open mind. There's some things here that make me think that this is just a defense tactic. And it's a good defense tactic. It's good because it does raise reasonable doubt. And if this becomes part of the trial, which of course the defense are going to want to make a big play of this at trial and, call the officers who really stood for this, Murphy and I think Forensi's deceased now, and Click, who is a retired police chief, they're going to call them to the stand, aren't they, to give evidence. So the jury, they only need one person in the jury to be persuaded that there is enough reasonable doubt, and the defense could result in a hung jury or even a not guilty for Richard Allen. So I think the defense have done well here. However crazy this sounds, this is the defense doing their job and actually using the prosecution's own discovery as their work. So makes you want to drug test. Yeah. That's it in a nutshell. Yeah, something about white nationalists in a cult who have hijacked the really fascinating Old Norse religion. They've hijacked it, so they call themselves Odinists. Maybe something in the drinking water. Yeah, well, maybe. Hi, Mason, Jackie. Angie Baby, Aussie TV, Sweet Peas. Our bucket list has holes. Oh, the case is taking a turn. Yeah, I'm 50-50 on whether there's more than one person involved. Now, obviously, if it turns out that there is indeed more evidence to support this theory, real evidence, not just people ringing in from Facebook, then there's definitely more than one person involved. And, there's the likes of Elvis Fields who've confessed to his two sisters that he was there. But then Elvis Fields has got the mentality of a 7 to 8-year-old, according to this documentation. But where did he get the information from? So there's a lot of questions. It brings up a lot of questions. And the prosecution are going to have to answer those questions. They're going to have to try and shut it down so that it doesn't become a big, massive deal at trial. Hi, Shazza. Alicia. What else we've got? Lisa. CW, here we go again on the crazy train. Yeah. Hi, Blambreel, Sharon. Just me, Jill. Okay, right, we're going to get going. Do you remember the open secret phone call with GK? No, he said Nick Edwards saw a video of the murders. No, I don't remember that at all. Don't remember that. Oh, yeah, it's definitely their own spin on it. Definitely. But they can't... What they can't do, if they're claiming that the prosecution have falsified and concealed, they can't then go too far off the story because they're already skating, in my opinion, skating on thin ice by naming all those people. Now, they can name those people because those people are already in the discovery. They can name those people, but of course, it's their own spin. They've not included some stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. Purposefully, they've not talked about it in this documentation because that will make Richard look bad. So there's things that they've chosen not to include in this documentation, because this is to benefit their client. They're working for their client, and in my opinion, they're doing a good job. Yeah, Sarah Boone. Sarah Boone, she's one on her own. She really is. She really is. Okay, let's get going on this now. Just checking down to the bottom of the chat here just to see if there's any other questions that I could quickly answer. Yeah, Grey Hughes is very much still, it's Richard Allen, it's Richard Allen, it's Richard Allen. I'm a little bit more open-minded. I certainly don't think this proves Richard Allen's innocence in any way. Of course, everybody is innocent till proven guilty in a court of law. It doesn't make me believe, though, that Richard Allen is innocent. I'm not there. Let's be clear. But I am open-minded as to, well, is there evidence that other people are involved? Could Richard Allen be part of this crowd of people? And the defense say no, he has absolutely no links to Odinism or any of these people that are mentioned. But again, it's the defense's story, this. So how do we know? Just because there's no links out there in the, in the social medias. Well, Richard Allen wasn't on social media. So, well, not as far as I know anyway. So how do we know? we can't just take the defence's word for that, because they're not going to tell us. They're not going to tell us that if there's even a thought that there might be a link between him and these Odinites. They want to get their client cleared. They either want to get the case dismissed, or they want to get this to trial and, create a problem for the prosecution, and ultimately so that the jury finds Richard not guilty. So they can hold things back, just like the prosecution have held things back. Thank you, Christina, for the $4.99. This is why I need membership on this channel too. Also, do we have a list of evidence taken from Richard Allen's shed? No, we don't know what was found either from his shed or from his house. We don't know. So there is a lot that the prosecution might have that we don't know. All we have is the PCA and the search warrant. We don't know what they found. We don't know what they found in his house. There's lots of speculations, but we don't know for sure what has been found on his property. We don't know what other evidence other than is in the PCA that has been investigated after his arrest, because a PCA, the probable cause affidavit, is simply the evidence that the prosecution want to use to persuade the judge that there's enough evidence to arrest this person and to, take away his freedoms. So there has to be evidence before a judge will allow anyone to be arrested. So the issue always is, when you're in this stage, as we are with several cases now that I'm following, that we've got the PCA and we're awaiting trial, and people are constantly making up conspiracy theories because, the PCA doesn't say this and there's no evidence of this. Well, we don't know, because the PCA is only the evidence that the prosecution want to give us, or really want to give the judge. They don't want to show their hand too soon. And it's only up to the arrest. The investigation continues after the arrest, because there's more search warrants issued. There's more that the prosecutors can do and law enforcement can do after the arrest. So we don't know. We know that carpet was taken from the Ford Focus, from the driver's side of the Ford Focus. So they'd be looking for evidence of blood. And if the victim's blood or victim's DNA is found in his car that's, dripped off him, let's say, then that's a massive problem. So the defense might have information that the prosecution have given them that is really damning. This might be, we don't know this yet, but I'm only speculating. There might be a whole bunch of evidence that the prosecution have handed the defense that really, really incriminates Richard Allen. And we're not going to know about that until the trial. So the defense are going to deflect and bring in an alternate theory to bring that into the case, so that they can then use that at trial. So it's a game of it's a big game of cat and mouse, kind of, So things are not always what they seem, and we are not going to know what the prosecution has. Like, the defense have played their hand, and it's unusual. This is unusual. I've never read a document quite like this in any case that I've kind of studied. I'm sure there are equally crazy documents out there and I just haven't seen them. But I personally have never seen a document quite like this. So the defense has played their hand, but it's in an attempt to get the prosecution to play theirs, isn't it? And they're going to have to. They're going to have to rebut this. So it's taking the time away from the prosecution's investigation to deal with this. And this is a big deal. This really is a big deal. But there could be a whole bunch of evidence that comes out at trial that we had no idea about and that will shock us all, right? Because like the Letitia Stout trial that happened recently, you know, I thought a lot had come out already. But there was things that came up there that none of us had any idea about. Even Landon, Gannon's mother, didn't know some of the stuff that came out at trial because they don't tell the families everything either. They keep the cards very close to the vest until trial. They only give away what they have to. Like the prosecution have to give the defense the discovery. They have to. But they're not going to play their card until they have to. So, yeah, the Masons. Yeah, not only is Brad Holder an Odinite, he's also a Freemason. So that's going to create a lot of speculation. A lot of speculation. Anyway, right. Without further ado, let's get into this because I'm too far up the chat now to be able to answer everything, and we'll be here all night. Okay, part 3. Liggett concealed and falsified evidence in his affidavit for search warrant. The concealed and falsified evidence blows Liggett's timeline apart, which explains why he concealed and falsified information. For Liggett's timeline to work and to place Richard Allen on the Monon High Bridge at 2:13, the time of the famous Down the Hill video, Liggett desperately needed Betsy Blair to describe a man on the Monon High Bridge that looked like Richard Allen, and perhaps more importantly, needed Betsy Blair to describe a car that she had observed parked at the CPS parking lot at approximately 2:15 as looking like Richard Allen's black Ford Focus. Betsy Blair's description of the man she observed on the Monon High Bridge around 2 p.m. looks nothing like Richard Allen. Liggett concealed this information from the judge. Betsy Blair's description of the vehicle she observed at the CPS parking lot looked nothing like a black Ford Focus. And honestly, nobody, right, they were in the PCA, and I've got the PCA up in the background, and we're going to go to the PCA in a bit. Nobody who saw that car parked at the old CPS building, which is close to the Freedom Bridge, and we're going to do all this on the map as well. People passed by it and saw it, but nobody described a black Ford Focus. Nobody. There was a purple vehicle, an SUV, and a smart car. And in the PCA, apparently all of those things were close enough to a Ford Focus to have 3 people see Richard Allen's car park there. That's a problem. That's a problem. PT Cruiser, thank you. In what world does a smart car look like a Ford Focus? And I'm not big on cars, but I know what a smart car looks like, and I know what a Ford Focus looks like. They don't look the same. But it's just people passing by, you know, who are just going about their day and probably didn't really look, you know, they saw it at the corner of their eye. And we know that eyewitness testimony is not accurate. Memory is not like a video clip. It's not actually or it's not. It's memories are generated. It's not like taking a video. Memories are generated. So the 3 juveniles who all claim that they saw Richard Allen, who incidentally, Richard Allen also said that he saw, which doesn't appear in this document. We'll get into that. They all described the man that they saw wearing something slightly different, but they all saw the same man. So, yeah. Okay. Liggett concealed this information from the judge. Betsy Blair's description of the vehicle, she observed that the CPS parking lot looks nothing like a black Ford Focus. Liggett also concealed this information from the judge for good measure. Liggett also lied about what Sarah Carbo observed at 3:57 p.m. Also blows up his timeline. Betsy Blair's first description of the man she saw on the bridge was memorialized in sketch 2, illustrated on February 17th, 2017, 3 days after the girls were found, but not released to the public until April 22nd, 2019. That's really weird. That's really weird. That they had this sketch that they didn't release for over 2 years. And that was released following Superintendent Doug Carter's press conference. I remember that being released. I remember watching that press conference, and that release was just like, that blew my mind, because it's nothing like the sketch that had come out initially and looks nothing like Bridge Guy, in my opinion. Let's just have a quick reminder of these sketches. So this is the sketch that Betsy Blair helped create on the 17th of February, 3 days after the girls were found, 4 days after they were murdered. And she was confident, very confident in this sketch, but they didn't release it for over 2 years. This is the sketch that came out first. And this is a sketch, in my opinion, that looks like Bridge Guy. So why they waited 2 years to release, I don't get that. I don't understand why they did that. So on February 17th, Betsy Blair met with the state police sketch artist, Taylor D. Bryant, and provided a description of the man she observed from 50 feet away on the Monon High Bridge. The same man that Liggett claimed in his affidavit was the killer. Betsy Blair told the sketch artist this man she observed was a white male, aged 20, brown curly hair, medium build. So a young man with curly brown hair. Okay, medium build. Well, none of that, apart from the white male, none of that is Richard Allen. Richard Allen's what, 50 something? Somebody tell me how old he is. I think he's 51, 52. Not got brown curly hair, not medium build. He's very short in stature. He's only 5'4". And he was as broad as he was high, as we say here in Northern England, until he lost a bunch of weight in prison. So definitely does not describe Richard Allen. Find attached and marked Exhibit 103, the unredacted facial identification reference sheet filed as confidential, that contains the description that Betsy Blair provided to the sketch artist. Also find attached a copy of the sketch that Taylor D. Bryant produced from Betsy Blair's description of the man she observed on the bridge, Exhibit 104. This illustration is also called Sketch 2 because it was released to the public second. Upon looking at that sketch, Betsy Blair told the sketch artist that the illustration was a 10 out of 10 for accuracy. So let's remind ourselves, this is the sketch that Betsy Blair said was 10 out of 10 for accuracy. Libby's boyfriend's got curly hair. I don't know that Libby had a boyfriend. Abby did. I don't know that Libby did, though. Because it was Libby that was communicating with the Anthony Shots profile. Do we know what Brad's son looks like? I know what he looks like, yeah. Or at least I know what he looked like in 2017. You meant Abby, okay. I'm not going to, I said this last night, I'm not going to put pictures of him because he was a child at the time. He was only 16. But there is a picture of him and Abby together. And there's a few pictures of Brad with his kids on Facebook, so you can just go and find them yourself. But yeah, it doesn't look like that. He looked very young. In 2017, he looked very young. Could he have looked 20 from a distance? Maybe from a distance. You honestly think the sketches are him and his son? Maybe, but he looked very young though. Maybe at a distance from 50 feet away, you'd say maybe he's 20. Thin as well, yeah, thin. I'd say slim build rather than... Anyway. Is his hair curly? Kind of, yeah. Dark curly. Kind of. More wavy than curly. I believe he's tall and very slim. Yeah, he is. Or at least he was. Slim. So I think you'd say slim build. Can't see some being involved. I mean, anything's possible. Anything's possible. But no, neither can I, honestly. Neither can I. The Unified Command did not release the Betsy Blair sketch to the public for over 2 years. Instead, they first released the Sarah Carbo sketch, called Sketch 1, because it was released to the public first. The Sarah Carbo sketch is illustrated by FBI sketch artist Plants. Oh, Plants. Goes by a single name. From Detroit. On June 19th, 2017, and released to the public on July 17th, 2017. Who was the person that Sarah Carbo was describing in her sketch? According to Liggett's affidavit, at approximately 3:57 p.m., Sarah Carbo observed a man walking westbound on County Road 300 North. Sarah Carbo was headed eastbound on County Road 300 North, operating her motor vehicle while simultaneously observing this man walking on the road towards her on the opposite side of the road. This is the same man that Sarah Carbo described for the sketch artist on June 19th. We will be discussing her description of that man later. So Sarah's sketch is this one. The one that, to me, looks like Bridge Guy. I think the eyes are too wide apart, but I think this part of his face is Bridge Guy. So definitely closer to Richard Allen's age than this one. Roughly 2 years later, on March 2019, Betsy Blair met with Tony Liggett, frustrated that her sketch had not been released to the public. Betsy was frustrated because Sketch 1, which was released to the public almost 2 years before, did not match the man that she observed on the High Bridge. Betsy even commented that Sketch 1 was wrong. Certainly, it was odd that Sarah's sketch was chosen to be released over the Betsy sketch for the following reasons. So those are just the references there to where they've got that from. So Betsy Blair provided her description only 4 days after seeing the man on the bridge while it was fresh on her mind, compared with Sarah, who provided her sketch 126 days after she observed the man on the road. So, right, so could you, I'm trying to put myself in this position, could you give an accurate description of a man? So you're driving along and you see someone walking on the opposite side of the road, and then 126 days later, give an accurate description of that man. I wouldn't have a clue. I would be able to probably say, yes, I recall someone, because it's the day you're going to remember, because it's the day of the murders. So you're probably going to remember that was that day. And you're going to think, oh, yeah, I remember that. A middle-aged guy, you might be able to give maybe a very, very rough description. But remember, you know, how much, even if you're only driving at, let's say, 20 or 30 miles an hour, how much attention do you really pay? Do you really give to somebody that you're passing by? Virtually none. She'd have probably had like a couple of seconds to actually see him. And memory is not taking a photograph or taking a video. It's the information that's taken in by the eyes, and then it's made up in the brain. So, I don't know. Betsy Blair had a good look at the man's face while stationary from only 50 feet away. Sarah was not stationary, but rather travelling down the road, operating her vehicle while simultaneously trying to observe the man on the road. And nobody knew that the girls were missing then. So it wasn't even like Sarah was driving down the road trying to look for suspects. The fact that the girls were missing wasn't reported to the police till about 5:30. So when Sarah was passing by, unless she knew the family really well and knew that Abby and Libby weren't home when they were meant to be picked up and they weren't there. So it's not like she's purposefully trying to observe this man. You know, you're not out scouting around looking for potential suspects. She's just driving along, sees a man on the opposite side of the road. You'd probably pay more attention if they were on your side of the road, because you'd have to slow down for them, maneuver around them, or wait for them to move. You'd get an eyeball to eyeball, probably angry, like, what the F are you doing there? Like, but on the opposite side of the road, there's no reason for her to slow down, to stop, nothing. I know these are quite narrow roads, but even so, it's not like she'd have to alter her speed or course or anything while passing him. So anyway, so during her March 7th, 17 interview, Betsy Blair was talking to 2 members of Unified Command, Kevin Hammond and Tony Liggett. At this interview, Betsy Blair told Liggett face-to-face that the man she observed on the High Bridge was the following. The man was slender and youthful-looking. He was more boyish-looking. He was in his 20s to early 30s. His hair seemed poofy. So I don't know what that means. Just as the sketch portrayed. He had no facial hair that she can remember. So she didn't see Richard Allen. She didn't see Richard Allen. She totally didn't see Richard Allen. In my opinion, that's nothing like Richard Allen. She saw someone else. No, there was lots of people out, right? It was a unseasonably warm day for February. So there could have been people on those trails that you're going for a walk. The Monon High Bridge was a popular walking place. So just because there was a man on the bridge around 2:15 or 2 o'clock, I think she said. Well, that man could have walked, it could be half a mile away by the time Abby and Libby were concerned enough for Libby to take that video. The video was 2:13. So if Betsy Blair saw this man, this young-looking man in his 20s, early 30s, with poofy hair at 2 o'clock-ish, well, then he could be half a mile away by the time the Labby and Libby are on the bridge and there's a man following them. Yes, D. Hutchinson, it was Richard Allen's lawyers said they saw patches on prison guards. Yeah, we talked about that the other day. So that would have been in the first video that I did on this. Thinking that was Flannel Guy. Who's Flannel Guy? But it's a very generic description of a youngish man. Okay. Finally, on April 22nd, 2019, Unified Command released Betsy Blair's sketch to the general public. In fact, upon its release, Superintendent Doug Carter commented that the man was responsible for the murders. So in April 2019, I remember this. I do remember this. It doesn't seem like that long ago. But anyway, Doug Carter said that this was the man responsible for the murders. This young man in his 20s to 30s with poofy hair. Also, at the time of the release of Sketch 2, Doug Carter also stated that Sketch 1 had now become secondary to the investigation. He did indeed. He absolutely did. He absolutely did. He totally did. On March 7th, 2019, Liggett was present when Betsy Blair described the man she observed on the bridge. Betsy was actually talking to Liggett face-to-face when she provided a description. That's repetitive. Liggett heard Betsy's description of a much younger man with brown poofy hair, but chose to conceal this information from the judge. Blair's description of a youthful, boyish-looking person in his 20s, maybe early 30s, with brown poofy hair, obviously does not at all describe Richard Allen. In order for Liggett to have provided the judge with honest and accurate information, he would have had to state the following in his affidavit. I, Tony Liggett, believe that Richard Allen is the man that murdered the girls for reasons stated herein. I also believe that the man that Betsy Blair observed on the bridge is Richard Allen and therefore the killer. However, I must inform the court that the man that Betsy Blair observed on the bridge really looks nothing like Richard Allen. Whereas Richard Allen was a man in his mid-40s with short or even shaved greyish hair, the man that Betsy Blair described was youthful, boyish looking, and had brown poofy hair. Also, Your Honour, Betsy Blair told the sketch artist that the man she saw on the bridge was just 20 years old. This description came only 4 days after she observed the man on the bridge. 2 years later, Betsy Blair still maintains that the man was in his 20s or maybe early 30s. Also, Betsy Blair told the sketch artist back in 2017 that the resemblance of the boy as sketched to the man she observed on the bridge was 10 out of 10. I must tell you, Judge, that this 10 out of 10 sketch looks absolutely nothing like Richard Allen. Nice bit of snort there, but I have to agree with that. Shall we see what Betsy Blair said, what was said about Betsy Blair in the probable cause affidavit? Let's do that. So the names have been redacted, but we can work out who's based on the description here. So, investigators spoke with blank, so we'll call this person Betsy. Investigators spoke with Betsy, who advised she was on the trails on February 13th, 2017. Video from the Hoosier Harvest store, which is close to the Freedom Bridge. I'll get the map up in a minute and just kind of show you where these places are. Captured Betsy's vehicle travelling eastbound on 1:36 p.m. towards the entrance across from the Mears farm. Betsy advised she saw 4 juvenile females walking on the bridge over the Old State 25 as she was driving underneath on her way to park. Betsy advised there was no other cars parked across from the Mears farm where she parked. She advised that she walked to the Monon High Bridge and observed a man matching the one from Victim 2's video. But he doesn't look like Bridge Guy. So the man in Victims 2's video was Bridge Guy. This man looks like Bridge Guy. In my opinion, this guy looks like Bridge Guy. This guy doesn't. This guy doesn't. In my opinion. She described the male she saw as a white male wearing blue jeans and a blue jean jacket. So they don't give Betsy Blair's description in the PCA. But then again, the defence don't give the description of what the man was wearing, because the description of what he was wearing is that similar to Bridge Guy, that Bridge Guy was wearing blue jeans and a blue jacket. But it wasn't a jean jacket, in my opinion. But from 50 feet away, anyway, she advised he was standing on the first platform of the Monon High Bridge, approximately 50 feet from her. She advised she turned around at the bridge and continued her walk. She advised approximately halfway between the bridge and the parking area across from Mears farm, she passed 2 girls walking towards Monon High Bridge. She advised she believed the girls were victim 1 and 2. So she would be there about 2-ish. So her vehicle is seen. Or is that her vehicle? So video from the Hoosier Harvester shows at 1:49 a white car matching. That'll be Kelsey's vehicle travelling away from the entrance across from Mears farm, because that's when they were dropped off. Okay, Betsy advised she finished her walk and saw no other adults other than the male on the bridge. Her vehicle was seen on the Hoosier Harvest store video at 2:14, leaving westbound from the trails. So she would have been near the bridge about 2-ish, or thereabouts. So she saw Ibn Libby coming as she was leaving. And this young man was on the bridge, on the first platform. He does, yeah. He does. We're going to get to that. Richard Allen admits standing on a platform. He does. We'll get to that, because there's a massive discrepancy in what the defence say Richard said and what the PCA says. We'll get to that in a bit. So I think both sides are being a little bit economical with the truth, but that's to be understood because that's the way it works. Liggett had a legal obligation to inform the judge of the vast difference between Betsy Blair's description of the man she observed on the bridge and Richard Allen. Yeah, well, yeah. I have to agree with them then. He did not. The fact alone should be sufficient to merit tossing the warrant and suppressing the fruits of an illegal search. However, there is more. Thank you, Jane, for the £5. Thank you. Critical hit. In order for Liggett's timeline to work, he needs Richard Allen's black Ford Focus to be parked at the CPS lot from 1:30 till 4:30. Betsy Blair sees one car at the CPS lot at 2:15, and it's not Richard Allen's car. Now, look, I don't understand where they get 4:30 from. I don't understand where they get 4:30 from. But anyway, let's go with it. Thank you, EJ, for the £20. Thank you so much. Thank you. And it's your first super chat, apparently. And I'm allowed to love it. I'm not allowed to love super stickers. It doesn't give me the option, but it gives me the option to love super chats. Thank you. Okay. Richard Allen voluntarily was interviewed. Now, this is where we get a massive discrepancy. This is where there is a big fat lie somewhere. There's a lie. All right, I'll let you decide where the lie is. Richard Allen voluntarily was interviewed on August 13th, 2022. So this would have been shortly before he was arrested, I would imagine. Watching the videotaped interview, it is apparent that Richard thought he was being asked questions to help assist the police in solving the crime. In trying to provide Liggett and Mullin a timeline of when he, Richard, was on the trail, Richard stated he arrived at the trail around noon. Later in the interview, Richard Allen told Liggett and Mullin that he probably left the trail around 1:30 p.m. In his affidavit, Liggett states that Richard Allen parked his black Ford Focus at the CPS parking lot and then cut over to the trail, where he then walked to the high bridge, ultimately following Abby and Libby across the bridge before abducting them. After murdering the girls, Liggett stated in his affidavit that Betsy Carbo, they've got the name wrong there, that should be Sarah Carbo, observed a man that Liggett claims is Richard Allen walking along 300 North at approximately 3:57 p.m. westbound towards the CPS parking lot. The implication being that Richard Allen was walking back to his car after abducting and murdering the girls. Do you want to see what was said in the PCA? Do you want to see what Richard Allen said, according to the PCA, when he rang the tip line in 2017? I bet you do. I'm going to have to find it. Okay. Okay. All right. Investigators reviewing prior tips encountered a tip narrative from an officer who interviewed Richard M. Allen in 2017. This narrative stated, Mr. Allen was on the trail between 30:30, so 1:30, and 3:30 in the PM. So in 2017, he rang in, right? Saying I was on the trails, I'm just letting you know I was on the trails, just in case anybody thinks I was the murderer. I don't exactly know what he said, but anyway. So he said back in 2017 that he was there between 1:30 and 3:30. But in 2022, he said he got there at noon and was gone by 1:30. So was he either lying or mistaken in 2017, or was he lying or mistaken in 2022? Well, we don't know. We weren't there, were we? But there's a big lie somewhere. Either Richard Allen's lying in 2022 because he knows that if he says, yeah, I was there, he's thought better of it. Or was he mistaken in 2017 and his recollection now is, oh, well, I was there. I wasn't there when those girls were murdered and I was there earlier. Or has he just forgotten? Could have forgotten in 2022. It's a long time ago. Could have forgotten what time he was there. It could be an honest mistake. Or did the person taking down the tip get it wrong in 2017? Did they hear it wrong? Did they write it down wrong? We may never know, but that's a huge discrepancy. Huge discrepancy. And, well, I don't know. I think ultimately it'll be down for the jury to decide which version they believe. It will have to be. If this comes up at trial, the jury will have to decide which one they believe. Okay. If what Liggett wrote in his affidavit were true, then Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would have been parked in the CPS parking lot from 1:30 to at least 4, giving him time to abduct the girls, murder the girls, and walk back to his black Ford Focus parked at the CPS parking lot sometime after 3:57 when Sarah Carbo observed Richard walking down 300 North. So, yeah, if the timeline that Richard himself gave in 2017 is true, then it does give him all of those options, and there's a potential that it was his black Ford Focus that was parked at the CPS parking area, like an old abandoned building. And the people who saw the car when they were passing got the description wrong, but it was Richard's car, even though none of them said there was a black Ford Focus or a black Ford or even anything close to it. But anyway, they were again just passing. So that was Richard's own timeline back in 2017. So it's not Liggett's timeline. That's Richard Allen's timeline. But again, we don't know if he got the time wrong or the person writing the tip down got the time wrong, or whether he was completely telling the truth but now realizes that puts him on a whole lot of hot water and he's changed the times. What's that, Donna? Wait till if the younger man was on the bridge, and then the girls went on the bridge, wouldn't they have been behind him and not the other way around? I don't think they would have passed him. Well, yeah, but if this young man walked across the bridge, if he was stood on the platform and then walked across the bridge, he could easily be across the bridge on the other side by the time the girls got there. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The 3 girls. I'm getting to that. The 3 girls saw a man that we know is Richard Allen. We know that those 3 girls saw Richard Allen because Richard Allen said he saw them. Actually, we'll do that now. We'll do that now. All right, so is it still? Yeah. We'll just keep reading. So we'll read from here. So Richard Allen was on the trail between 1 and 3:30. He parked at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the new Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noted one was taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember description, nor did he speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. Stated there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead, however, did not pay attention to them. So he did not take any photos or videos. And then the potential follow-up information. So this is what the person who took the tip wrote. Potential follow-up information. Who were the 3 girls walking in the area of the Freedom Bridge? So the person didn't think Richard Allen was in any way problematic. What the person taking the tip wanted law enforcement to follow up on was the 3 girls. Oh, dear God. Investigators believe Mr. Allen was referring to the former Child Protective Services building, as there's not a Farm Bureau building, never has been. Investigators believe the females he saw included blank and blank due to the time they were leaving the trail, the time he reported getting to the trail, and the descriptions the 3 females gave. Okay, so we'll go to what the 3 females said, because they all claim seeing a man. They all give different descriptions, though, but they're clearly seeing the same man. All right. Okay. Interviews. And also, Betsy Blur also claims seeing. She said 4 juveniles, but there was 3. I mean, there could have been 4, but Betsy Blur, I don't know. Betsy Blur may have thought there was 4 and there was actually 3. So Betsy Blur saw these girls as well, right? Because they had a day off school, so there's going to be bunches of people around. Okay, so interviews were conducted with 3 juveniles, blank and blank, and we don't know those people's names either, because the defense in their documentation don't mention them because it's problematic for them. So they're not going to mention that, are they? So they advised that they were on the Mourne High Bridge Trail on February 13th, 2017. They advised they were walking on the trail towards Freedom Bridge to go home when they encountered a male walking from Freedom Bridge towards the Mourne High Bridge. Blank described the male as kind of creepy and advised he was wearing light blue jeans, like a light blue jacket, and his hair was grey, maybe a little brown, and he did not really show his face. So that does describe Bridge Guy. I mean, it doesn't give an age. So blue jeans and like a light blue jacket. So yeah. Okay. She advised the jacket was a duck canvas type jacket. Blank advised she said hi to the male, but he just glared at them. That's what I do when people speak to me, though. She recalled him being in all right. So this is another person. They're all together. These 3 juveniles are all together. But she recalls him being in all black and had something covering his mouth. So he wasn't in black. She described him as not very tall with a bigger build. She said he was not bigger than 5'10". Well, Richard Allen is only 5'4". So no bigger than 5'10" is a stretch. So he's tight, he's small, really small for a guy. Blank advised he was wearing a black hoodie, black jeans, and black boots. And he had his hands in his pockets. So 2 of them described this man that Richard Allen admits seeing 3 girls, right? So we can, unless there's 2 groups of girls, there could be, school was out that day. There could be multiple bunches of girls out there. How do we know, right? But 2 of these girls claimed that the man they saw was wearing black, and one of them claimed that they were wearing blue. But memory isn't, it's not like taking a photo. People, I don't know. And again, they didn't think there was anything wrong. They probably just were chatting and just passed, and that was that. But now would be a good time, actually, just to show the map here, as we are continuing to talk about this. But I have to share it this way, just to be annoying. Google Earth doesn't come up as a window for whatever reason. Okay, so I've plotted these places out, right? So this is based, all these locations are from the PCA. Okay. So there's the Monon High Bridge. So we know that Richard Allen, or we'll call it the killer, right? So the man believed to be Richard Allen walked from the direction of the Freedom Bridge down. This is the trail, right? The Monon Bridge Trail. So I think he parked here. There's a Family and Children's Services office. When was this from? This is from 2022. So I think he parked there, and there must have been a building there at the time, because that seems to still be on Google. Because the CPS office now, there is a CPS office, but it's actually in the town. So I think he parked there. So he's walking along here, walks along here. Okay, this is according to the PCA. Walks along here, and then this is the Monon High Bridge, right? So walking this way. Libby, and he gets to platform 1, which is the first platform, and then Betsy Blur is coming along and sees a man, right, that Doug Carter in 2019 said he's definitely the killer. But Betsy Blur describes a young man, right? So anyway, that was about 2 o'clock that Betsy Blur saw this man standing here. All right. But, right, this is confusing, because that can't be the killer. Right, because Abby and Libby were dropped off at, I think the camera's here. The Hoosier Harvey store has 2 addresses, just to be confusing. One address pegs it here, which makes sense. But there's another Hoosier Harvey store address, which is way up here, way up here. It can't be that one. So it has to be this address. So maybe they had that address in 2017, and then they've moved. I don't know. Or maybe there's 2. I don't know, but there's 2 addresses. So I think the camera's here. It makes sense for the camera to be here. Because this is the road. So it's going to capture people. So it's going to capture Kelsey dropping off the girls, or driving past to drop off the girls. And then they walk the trail. So they get there. Hold on, let me look at the PCA. Okay. 149. Okay, right. Okay, yeah. So, victim 1 and 2 were dropped off across from the Mears farm at 149. All right. So Mears farm is located on the north side of County Road, near an entrance to the trails. So this is going to be the farm area right here. All right. So 149. So they've walked this way, and then they are here at 2:13 because that's when they take the video, when Libby takes the video. So if there's a man stood on the platform at 2 o'clock, as Betsy Blur says, the young man, Abby and Libby have to pass him, don't they? Or if he still stood there when Abby and Libby come by, he has to have gone because the killer was behind them. The killer was came up behind them. So they either had to pass him standing on platform 1 and then think, oh, he's creepy, it gives them the creeps, and they carry on walking and then realise he's following them. That's possible. Or that man that Betsy Blur saw, that young man, has got nothing to do with this, and he's just stands there and then either carries on walking, because by the time Abby and Libby get there, he could be here easily. That's not far. I can tell you how far it is. From the end of the bridge to here is only 0.1 miles. So he could just have walked all the way across the bridge and be on this road here and be gone. So that person that Betsy Blur saw, I'm not confident at all that that was the killer. Just based on a bit of common sense, but who knows? Who knows? So the crime scene is over here. So it's the PCA says the crime scene is, because somebody asked me about this last night, so I took time to actually measure it. So at the time, the Morning High Bridge trails approximately 1 mile gravel trail terminating at the Morning High Bridge. Morning High Bridge is an abandoned railroad trestle, approximately 0.25 long, so 1/4 of a mile long, spanning Deer Creek and Deer Creek Valley on the southeast end of the trail. Approximately 0.7 miles northeast of the trail is the northwestern edge of the Morning High Bridge, blah, blah, blah. And that's the Freedom Bridge. Okay, so we've already established where the Freedom Bridge is. That's a pedestrian bridge spanning State Road 25. Okay, we don't need to know that. Okay, so guys down the hill. Where does it say the crime scene? Okay, there. So they were found deceased in the woods approximately 0.2 miles northeast of the Morning High Bridge. Right. So obviously it depends where on the Morning High Bridge you measure from, but I just measured from this side because they were walking this way. Thank you, Purple AJ, for the $10. Regray Hughes, girls took pictures earlier in the bridge. No one was visible. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's a picture. Libby took Abby. So Libby was stood on one of the platforms and she took Abby as Abby was walking up and there was no one there. Yeah, that's a very good point. So the man who was stood on platform 1 at 2 o'clock, as per Betsy Blair, must have gone because the girls walked across and there was no one there. So that man is not the killer. All right. Or he could have run away and be hiding, waiting for them. But as we discussed last night, how did anybody know they were going to be there? Who actually knew they were going to be there? Well, Kegan Kline knew they were going to be there, but Kegan Kline's not a suspect in this case anymore. It all comes back to Kegan Kline. Something funny. All right, so I just measured 0.2 miles northeast. It's about here. And it may be a little bit further up actually, but it's very close to the cemetery. And this is the question that somebody asked me, and I don't know if they're in the chat now because I can't remember who asked me. How close was the crime scene to the cemetery? Very close. This is a hill. It's actually quite a steep hill. It's quite shallow there, but it is going up an incline. And also, I think that they crossed the river because the defense said the river was 3.5 feet deep. But rivers vary even within, a few feet. And they'll have got the 3.5 feet from the measuring station. So I don't know exactly where the measuring station is here in Delphi, but there's a really shallow area there. And if you've been watching Gray Hughes flew a drone over this, and this area is still very shallow. I may even have taken a screenshot. Yeah, I did. This is just a screenshot from Gray's video. Let's get rid of that. That is that, isn't it? And Gray's there right now. So that's today, well, 2 days ago maybe. And that is 2022. Now, we don't know how deep that was in 2017, but if that's consistently shallow, as it looks like it probably is, I think they crossed there. And that makes sense as the crime scene's up here. However, to answer the question that sparked off me doing all this map stuff, this is on Ron Logan's land. Ron Logan's house is up here, but this is his land. The cemetery's right there. And there's just like a small fence. Again, per Gray Hughes. As of like right now, there's a small fence there. It's not high at all. So you could look from the cemetery down the hill and basically see the crime scene. And it's very, very close. So I don't know why they wanted to know how close the cemetery was. So if I take it from where I've put the crime scene, 0.1 miles to the border of the cemetery. Now, if the crime scene's further down, still not very far. I mean, it's really, really like people think that the crime took place in like thick woods, and it's really not. It's really not. Like in February, there wouldn't have been like leaves on the trees. Like somebody could have seen from, if they were walking at like along this fence line, somebody could have looked down there and seen something. Depends how far down the hill it was. Actually was, but no, the crime scene is much lower than the cemetery. Yeah, but it can't be very far much lower. If I measure it right the way down to the river or the creek, so cemetery fence lines here, even if it was right the way down here, even if the crime scene was right next to the river, it's still only 0.16 miles. It's less than a fifth of a mile. So even if it's to the lowest point, it's less than a fifth of a mile. Even if the crime scene's right down here. Because I'd put my pins in just general areas. I don't know exactly where the crime scene is. I'm just going from 0.2 miles northeast. So I just kind of drew a line. So if the crime scene's further down here, right near the river, it's still very close to that cemetery fence line. Even if the crime scene's right down here. In February, if someone had a mind to look, someone was walking along here just randomly minding their own business. It was a really brazen thing to do. Commit a double murder in the middle of the day in this, like the woods I go to, that little wooded area I go to that I call the secret woods is actually bigger than this area. It's way bigger than this area. And I don't think that's, like, if somebody committed a double murder down there in the middle of the day, I would be shocked, would not come close to how brazen that would be. And this is a smaller wooded area than that. Very brazen. The fact that they've gone onto private land, yeah, there's much less likely that people are going to walk by because they've gone onto private land rather than on this, which is public land. However, the cemetery's right there. And what do people do at cemeteries? They go and visit graves, don't they? And put flowers on them and stuff. It's brazen. Like, how do they know that these houses here, like Ron Logan's houses are on here, there's houses there. How do they know that there's not somebody just having a walk along here? It's brazen. It's crazy to think that 2 people were murdered when there's just people walking along, there's other kids out. Anyway, so yeah, this is where Richard Allen himself, so people were driving by and saw a car that they believed to be Richard Allen's, but Richard Allen himself, now the time is in question, but he said that he walked from the Freedom Bridge, so he'd have come down here, along here, down here, and then he was watching his stock ticker, and then he stopped on the bridge to watch the fish. That's what he said. And he said he saw the 3 juveniles, but he didn't see Abby and Libby. That's what he claimed. So, so there you go. All right, we'll get rid of that and we'll carry on reading. I'm going to swap my thing over because I don't like sharing my entire screen. as it makes clicking back on the chat more difficult. But I can see the chat here anyway on the other. Have I seen Duty Wrong from last night? No, I haven't actually. I've not watched much YouTube today. I watched Chasing earlier. She did a live on this earlier. I also noticed that there was some crazy Summer Wells stuff going on, which I've only got a bare bones of, but I've not watched anything else. I've been watching Netflix. Okay. So, in other words, for Liggett's timeline to work, Richard Allen's Black 4 Focus must have had to remain parked at the old CPS building from roughly 1:30 when Liggett claims Richard Allen arrived to roughly 4:30 as Liggett claims Richard Allen was abducted and murdered. Right, Richard Allen himself claimed that. Not that he abducted and murdered the girls, but that was the time he gave in 2017. Okay. In his deposition, Liggett was asked a series of questions by defense counsel, and Liggett answered those questions as follows. Is it your contention that Richard Allen's Black 4 Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 1:29 roughly on Feb 13th? Yes. Is it your contention that Richard Allen's Black 4 Focus was parked at the old CPS building at 1:45? And then so on and so forth. 2 p.m., 2:14, 2:15, 2:30, 2:45, 3 o'clock, 3:15, 3:30, 3:45, 4 o'clock, and then 4:30, no. You get the first no. At what time do you contend that Richard Allen's Black 4 Focus was no longer parked at the old CPS building? Around 4. All right. Through his answers, Liggett demonstrates that he recognised that for his timeline to work, Richard Allen's Black 4 Focus would have to be parked CPS from 1:30 to 4 to give him time to abduct and murder the girls. Therefore, if there is any evidence that Richard Allen's Black 4 Focus was not parked at the old CPS parking lot between those times, that is something that he would be required to share with the judge. Rather than tell the truth, Liggett concealed the evidence that Richard's Black 4 Focus had left the CPS parking lot probably at 1:30, but certainly before 2:15, when Blair saw a completely different car, and therefore Richard Allen could not have been on the bridge at 2 o'clock or committed the murders soon thereafter. Well, again, I'll refer you to what I said earlier, that it depends on which timeline Richard Allen is now saying happened. Because in 2017, he put himself there. So is he changed that now? And if so, why? And did he still see some juvenile girls? Now, if he truly was there between noon and 1:30, he couldn't have seen the juvenile girls who were there at like 2 o'clock. So he had to see a different group of girls. And they must have seen a different person other than Richard Allen. But that could be the case. It could absolutely be the case. But if it is the case, there's a massive discrepancy that needs to be explained. What evidence is there that his car wasn't parked there after 2:15? Well, we don't know. We don't know. That's going to. I'm quite sure that's going to be an argument at the trial. That's going to come up at the trial. Okay, Richard Allen could not have been there. All right. For starters, as noted earlier, in his interview with Liggett and Mullin, Richard Allen stated that he arrived at the trails around noon and left around 1:30. Liggett failed to inform the judge that Richard Allen stated he had left the trails at 1:30. Well, he did. That's true. Because in this probable cause affidavit, there's no time. There's no time other than The one that he gave in 2017, which fits Liggett's timeline. So there's being economical with the truth on both sides, because the defense don't mention the juvenile girls that he admitted seeing. He said he saw in 2017. So that's not mentioned. But equally, the prosecution, or the law enforcement in the PCA, and to get the search warrant, also admitted the time that Richard Allen now stated in 2022. The next question to ask is, did anyone see a vehicle parked at the old CPS building between 1:30 and 4 p.m. that did not resemble Richard Allen's black Ford Focus, then supporting the timeline that Richard Allen provides to Liggett, but that Liggett concealed from the judge? The answer is yes, Betsy Blair. When Betsy Blair arrived at the trail at roughly 1:46, Betsy Blair had parked her vehicle in a different location that the defense calls the Mears parking lot. When she left the morning trail and pulled out of the Mears parking lot, Betsy Blair headed west on 300 North in her car and was spotted on the Hoosier Harvester camera at 2:14. Okay, so the old CPS lot is only a 36-second drive from the Hoosier Harvester camera. Okay. Depends how fast you're going, but okay. Given Betsy Blair a full minute to drive from the Hoosier Harvester to the old CPS lot, it would mean that Betsy Blair would pass the old CPS lot at 2:15. Remember that Liggett had admitted under oath that 2:15 Richard Allen's black Ford Focus would be parked at the CPS building. However, at 2:15 p.m, when Betsy Blair passed the old CPS building, Betsy Blair did not see a black Ford Focus. She observed passing. What did she observe passing? Well, she observed one car that resembles a 1965 Ford Comet. Where's that come from? That's not in the PCA. Where's that come from? According to Liggett's own report, Betsy Blair observed one car in the CPS lot at 2:15, and that car resembled a 1965 Ford Comet that her father once owned. All right. So her vehicle is seen on Hoosier Harvester at 2:14. When she was leaving, she noted a vehicle was parked in an odd manner at the Child Protective Services building. She said it was not odd for vehicles to be parked there, but she noticed it was odd because of the manner it was parked. So they've not said what type of car Betsy Blair saw. They've not said. So the defense are saying that Betsy Blair, when she passed there at 2:15, saw a Ford Comet. $1965 Ford Comet. What does that look like? 1965 Ford Comet. I've no idea what that car looks like. Okay. Right, that's not a Ford Focus, is it? That's definitely doesn't look like a Ford Focus. Very distinctive. What does a 2016 Ford Focus look like? I'm not sticking up for Richard Allen here. Anybody who thinks that I'm sticking up for Richard Allen, I'm not. Okay, 2016 Ford Focus. That's what that looks like. So I guess at a distance, you might think that that's a Ford Comet. I don't know. So, right, let's see how many different types of vehicle were spotted at the old CPS building. Right. Okay. So investigators received a tip. So this guy, on his way to Delphi on State Road 25 around 2:10, observed a purple PT Cruiser or small SUV. All right. So what does a PT Cruiser look like? Oh, there's a purple PT Cruiser. So that doesn't look really like a Ford Focus, does it? Very distinctive. But neither does it look like a Ford Comet. So we've now got... So this old CPS building was very crowded. So we've got a 1965 Ford Comet. We've got Richard Allen's black Ford Focus. Got a black one anywhere? There's a black one. So we've got Richard Allen's black Ford Focus. And we've got a purple PT Cruiser. It's a used car lot. Yeah, it is. All right, it doesn't stop there. Doesn't stop there. Doesn't stop there. All right, so we get another one. There's another one. Okay, so stated it appeared as though it was backed in as to conceal the license plate of the vehicle. So both drew diagrams of where they saw the vehicles and their diagrams generally matched. What does that mean, generally matched? It's only a small area. So, okay, now we've got someone else. All right. So, full stop, blank advised he remembered seeing a smaller dark-coloured car parked at the old CPS building. He described it as possibly being a smart car. Blank vehicle, so blank's vehicle is seen leaving at 2:28 on the Hoosier Harvester. Right, so smart car. Smart car. Okay, so we've now got a smart car. That's a smart car. So we've got, right, we've got Betsy Blur seeing a Ford Comet. We've got unknown guy seeing a PT Cruiser. We've got someone else unnamed seeing a smart car. And then the actual car is a 2016 Ford Focus. Smart car could be mistaken for a PT. Yeah, maybe. Similar shape, but that looks bigger. But from a distance, maybe. But smart cars, though, are tiny. They're tiny. Like, you definitely, even from a distance, be able to ID a smart car. The tiny, just like a little box. PT, it's a similar shape, but it's bigger, way bigger than a smart car. A smart car, you can literally get a miniature person inside and nothing more. They're tiny. They're like half a car. It's like half this PT Cruiser. And certainly none of them look like a Ford Comet. All seen at the abandoned CPS building, which is the building's not there anymore, but by the looks of things on Google, but there's a tiny parking area. Richard Allen could fit in a smart car. He could now. When he was a larger, more rotund man, shall we say, he'd struggle in a smart car. Like his height, yeah, be fine. They're all distinctive cars, though. So how can everybody who passed see something so very different? The PT Cruiser could have been Kegan. Is it his mother that had the PT Cruiser? I need to go and back and review all the Kegan Klein stuff, because I forgot all that. Once Richard Allen was arrested, I forgot all that. I only remember what I need to remember. Exactly, Dawn. You could not confuse a Ford Focus, which is the most normal car in the world, with a smart car or a Comet. The three newer cars could look similar from the front, though, and it was backed in. So that's from the front. That's got a distinctive grille at the front. I mean, definitely not if it looked like that. Smart car, maybe. Maybe that one, like that model. Anyway, we'll be here all night if we contemplate that. All right, we'll carry on reading. Okay. Again, to whom did Betsy Blair provide this description of a 1965 Ford Comet looking angular in appearance vehicle? None other than Liggett himself. Liggett was fully aware that the car that Betsy Blair described as being backed into a spot in the old CPS building looked nothing like Richard Allen's black Ford Focus, and that was not in the PCA. It was not in the PCA. Concealed that information from the judge, and it was concealed. It should be noted that if Richard Allen left at 1:30, then the person that Betsy Blair observed on the High Bridge at roughly 2 p.m. was not Richard Allen. And I don't think it was the killer. Well, let's put it this way. I don't think that was Bridge Guy. That would explain why the person that Betsy Blair observed on the High Bridge looked nothing like Richard Allen, because it wasn't Richard Allen. Well, let's just say I don't think it was Bridge Guy. I don't know. And it wasn't Richard Allen if it was a young man. It was a 20-year-old kid with brown poofy hair. Concealing Betsy Blair's description of the vehicle at the old CPS building from the judge may have temporarily plugged a hole in the dam of Liggett's problematic timeline when Dina reviewed the affidavit on October 13th, 2022. But Liggett's concealment has now been exposed. Okay, Defence Counsel recognises that in 1965, Ford did not make a Comet, Mercury did. But these were the words of Betsy Blair, who knew what a Comet looked like. Okay, well, Google gives me 4 Comets. Okay, Betsy even provided a sketch of the side profile of the car that she observed, featuring the angles that the car possessed. Blur sketch of the side. So she saw the side profile of the car, not looking from the front. Is attached here to and marked as Exhibit 113. I'd love to see that sketch. Definitely looks nothing like the side profile of Richard Allen's Ford Focus. A photo of a Ford Focus similar to the one owned by Richard Allen in 2017 is attached. And it gets worse. Oh, no. Okay. When asked to describe the colour of the car that resembled a 1965 Ford Comet, Betsy Blur actually told Liggett that the car she saw was not black. So, what colour was it? Dear me. Liggett heard from the mouth of Betsy Blur that the 1965 Ford Comet-looking vehicle was not black, which is the colour that Liggett needed the vehicle to be. Oh, excuse me, I'm yawning. In order to fit the description. Because of Betsy Blur's description of the car, she viewed blah, 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 blah. At some point in time after Richard Allen left the CPS lot, an older, angular-looking car that resembled a Comet and was not black arrived at the CPS building. Well, no one else saw that, though. No one else saw that. The driver of this 1965 Ford Comet-looking angular non-black vehicle backed in the CPS parking lot at roughly 2:15 when returning home. Betsy observed this car that reminded her of the car her dad was growing up. All of this adds up to this fact. Evidence concealed by Liggett supports that Richard Allen was not at the crime scene. Well, we don't know that because of that time issue. We can't say that because not of that time issue. But what we can say is that Betsy Blair most likely did not see Bridge Guy and most likely did not see a black Ford Focus. That's what I think we can say with maybe a little bit of certainty. It's simply outrageous and abusive behaviour on the part of Liggett. Abusive in that Liggett used his power as a law enforcement officer to conceal evidence and secure a search warrant. I bet Liggett is furious at all this. I bet Liggett is like, oh, FFS. What now? Okay. To conceal evidence and secure a search warrant 26 days before an election in which he was running for sheriff. And at the brunt end of Liggett's abusive behaviour is Richard Allen, right, get your violins out now, who has been sitting and suffering in hell for over 10 months. Liggett doesn't even have the excuse that Betsy Blair provided the description to a different detective, and therefore he, Liggett, could not have known of Blair's distinguishing description, making it a simple administrative what's that snafu that fell through the cracks. No, Liggett heard the description straight from the mouth of Betsy Blair, yet chose to conceal it. All right. Okay. I don't think, Olivia, you got my attention because all of those red dots. Why is no one accusing him of being a member of this Odin cult? Why does it mean he's not a cult member? We don't know that he isn't. We don't know that he isn't. It might be. The defense say he isn't. But as I said earlier, the defense aren't going to put anything in this document that gives anybody the chance to say, yeah, but what? So we don't know. We don't know. We don't know he isn't an Odinist. Snafu. Situation normal, all fucked up. Really? Is that what it means? Oh, I'm going to use that all the time now. All the time. Thank you, Miss Wales. She sees a guy on platform 1 and Richard Allen says he's on platform 1, but it's a different guy. I think it must be. I think it must be. Because if she sees a young guy stood there I mean, people stand on those platforms all the time and look over. Right, so this is a young guy stood there about 2 o'clock. Now, when Abby and Libby passed by, and around probably just after that, there's no one stood on platform 1 because Libby stands on one of the platforms to the south, looking north, and takes a photo of Abby walking along, and there's no one in the background. So if that guy was stood there at 2 o'clock, Abby and Libby would have had to pass him, and he would have been in the background of Abby's of Libby taking Abby's photo. So it has to be a different guy, but who knows? But the photograph that Abby is in, that Libby took, that doesn't lie. There's no one stood there. Did Richard ever confirm that it was him on the platform? I think so. Can I search this document? No. There we go. Okay, on October 13th. So October 13th. So this is when he was interviewed just before his arrest. He stated he saw juvenile girls on the trails east of Freedom Bridge, and he went onto the Mourne High Bridge. He further stated he went out onto the Mourne High Bridge to watch the fish. In his statement, he said he walked out to the first platform on the bridge, and then he walked back, sat on a bench on the trail, and then left. So, yeah, he said he went out to the first platform, watched the fish for a bit, sat on a bench, and left. So, yeah, he did say that. But what is missed out of that PCA is that he said that he was there between noon and 1:30. But having said that, in 2017, when he rang in a tip, he said he was there between 1:30 and 3:30. So, yeah. Depends who you want to believe. Depends who you want to believe. Okay. No, Liggett heard the description straight from the mouth of Betsy Blair, yet chose to conceal this timeline, destroying evidence from the judge. If Judge Dina had known that evidence showed that Richard Allen was home by the time the girls were abducted at 2:13, Dina would not have signed the search warrant. But that's not all. It gets worse. Liggett flat out lied when he told Judge Dina that in 2017, Sarah Carbo described a man as wearing muddy and bloody clothing and was also wearing a blue jacket. For Liggett's timeline to work, not only did Liggett, need for Richard Allen's black Ford Focus to be parked at the old CPS lot between 1:30 and 4, he also needed Sarah Carbo's statement concerning the man she claimed she saw walking westbound on 300 North at 3:57 to match Betsy Blair's description of a man wearing a blue jacket. It would also help if the man had blood on his clothing to further tie him to the murder. In his affidavit, Liggett wrote the following. An interview was done with Sarah Carbo in 2017. She states she was travelling east on 300 North and observed a male walking west on the north side. Okay. She stated he was wearing a blue-coloured jacket and blue jeans and was muddy and bloody. She further stated that it appeared that he had gotten into a fight. Investigators determined from the video that she was on 300 North at 15:57 hours. What does the PCA say? Okay, it says something very similar. Hold on a minute. Should be here. I read it just before. Here we go. Okay, so investigators spoke with Sarah, who stated that she was travelling east on 300 North. Okay, observed a male subject walking west on the north side away from Morning High Bridge. Sarah advised that the male subject was wearing a blue coloured jacket and blue jeans and was muddy and bloody. She further stated that it appeared he had gotten into a fight. Okay, so it's exactly the words. Okay, more or less. The blue jacket described by Sarah would need to match the colour of the jacket described by Betsy Blair to help with Liggett's timeline. Again, the blood on the clothing would be an added bonus, as that would tie the man that Sarah observed with the murders and therefore assist the judge in making the decision to sign the warrant. The problem is, in 2017, Sarah told Liggett to his face that the man she observed walking west on 300 North was wearing a tan-coloured coat, a lighter coloured coat, not a blue jacket. Wait. Well, that's definitely not what is in the PCA. So where... Hold on, there's a reference, 167. Okay, find attached a flash drive containing Sarah's June 7th interview with Tony Liggett. It is marked as Exhibit 115. She describes the man she observed was wearing a tan-coloured coat, lighter coloured coat, at the 5:07:30 mark. Wow. That's shocking. That is a lie. That is a lie. She advised that the male subject was wearing a blue coloured jacket, blue jeans, and was muddy and bloody. Wow. That is a lie. Oh, wow. If what they're saying here is true. Maybe Richard had a friend, but he's one of the suspects. Maybe Richard is involved. Listen, I'm not standing up for Richard Allen. Richard Allen is absolutely still on my list. There's nothing that they've said, really, that would, to me, think that he's definitely innocent. Nothing that they've said. But there's a lot of problematic issues. But it works both ways, because they're missing stuff out as well. They're not talking about the juvenile girls. They're not talking about what Richard said in 2017, which does put him there between 1:30 and 3:30. Klein's still on my list as well. I find it, how much of a coincidence does it have to be for Kegan Kline, via the Anthony Shots profile, to have been messaging Libby on the day she was murdered, and he's now in jail for child P, and only he knew that they were going there, that we know of, apart from the immediate family. Like, Kelsey, Libby's sister, because she drove them there. Like Libby's family knew that they were going there. He was wearing a tan hoodie under his jacket. Well, we don't know about that. maybe, who knows? But wouldn't she have said he was wearing a blue coat over a tan hoodie? And remember, she only saw him. This is Sarah. She was driving one way, he was walking the other way. So you're only going to get a flash of the clothing. So you're going to get the colour. You're not going to really probably get the style, but you're going to get the colour. And tan is very different than blue. That's scary, shocking, that. Okay. So this is a problem because the colour of this man's coat did not match the coat of the 20-year-old boyish-looking man with the poofy brown hair that Betsy Blair observed on the High Bridge around 2 p.m. According to Liggett, both of these men were Richard Allen. I don't think both of them were Richard Allen. Even if Richard Allen's the killer and Sarah's got the colour of the coat completely wrong, and that was Richard Allen, the man on the bridge at 2 o'clock, the young man on the bridge, I don't think is the killer. I don't think he's Richard Allen. I don't think... If he's the killer, it definitely means there's more than one person involved. And one of them could be Richard Allen. The other one... How many people had access to that Anthony Shots profile? I don't think that the whole cult thing does disregard Richard Allen. I don't think it does. What it does mean that if Richard Allen's involved, then there's other people involved as well. But it doesn't mean to say that Richard Allen's innocent. Doesn't. The two things are not mutually exclusive. But there's nothing in this that screams to me that this is the Ordinists that did it. There's a lot of red flags. There's a lot of, hold on a minute, that's interesting, or that's concerning. There's concerning things, but none of them scream to me that none of this information puts any of those people at the scene. There's a lot of, that's weird, that's strange, that's weird. There's lots of that, but none of this information in this document puts any of them people at the scene. Richard Allen, the shortest Viking in history. That's funny. Trish, yeah, you listen to my video that I made this morning. Talked about that there. That was from last night. Okay, so according to Liggett, both these men were Richard Allen. Another way to put this is that Liggett had asserted that Sketch 1 and Sketch 2 are the exact same man, Richard Allen. Carbo saw a man walking on 300 North wearing a jacket. Liggett needed the colour of the jacket to match the colour of the jacket worn by the man, Betsy Blair. Okay, we've got all that. The problem is that Carbo did not observe the man walking down 300 North wearing a blue jacket. She observed a tan jacket, which means that Sarah Carbo and Betsy Blair observed two different men. And it was a lie in the PCA. The PCA, there was a lie. Because it definitely says that the man at 357 was wearing a blue jacket. And in this interview, they say that she said a tan jacket. So Liggett had testified under oath that only one man, Richard Allen, committed these crimes. Therefore, if Patsy... Oh, okay, we've got all that. But that's not all. The suspect drawings are completely different people. They are. They are. They are. I mean, that young one could be that one's son. Similar mouth shape. Were the girls taken then brought back? There's people that have said that. We don't exactly know where they were killed. We assume not, because it was the middle of the day. It would have been a massive risk to take them out onto the road or back through the cemetery. I guess that would have been the... Whichever way they went, they'd have either had to walk them across the bridge onto a road or back along the trail onto the road, or across the creek, up the hill and through the cemetery onto a road. We don't know the time of death, Liv. We don't. We've not seen the autopsies. We don't know the time of death. Yeah, the different sketch artists, but those are completely different men. Canoe on a river. No. You're not gonna be able to get two struggling girls and a killer in a canoe and escape without anybody seeing them. No. You're definitely not going to do that. Nowhere in Sarah Carbo's interview does she use the word bloody to describe the clothing that the man was wearing. Nowhere. The so-called muddy, bloody lady... What? The so-called muddy, bloody lady is actually just the muddy lady. As Carbo only used the word muddy to describe the man she observed. It certainly would help the judge in making his decision if the man walking down the street was wearing a blue jacket and was also wearing bloody clothing, as if he'd just murdered somebody. However, Liggett just flat out lied. That's crazy. The property of the nearby landowner, they were found near the property line. Yeah, they were found on Ron Logan's land. Like, it's not near his house. It was 1,400 feet from his house. So it's like he owned like this like wooded area at the back of his house. They were there. And Libby wasn't tiny. She was quite tall for her age. Like, she would have been taller than Richard Allen. Muddy would suggest he'd been down at the creek, possibly. Or fallen over. I sometimes come home muddy when I've fallen over. It's not an unusual sight for me to be really muddy walking home, like the walk of shame. Good job I don't have to go very far from the field. I only have to go like 2 inches. No, it's like 2 minutes. But I have to pass a few houses. And sometimes I'm very muddy. Anyway. Instead of lying, had Liggett told the judge the man walking down 300 North at 3:57 wearing a light-coloured tan coat instead of a blue coat, then the judge would have realised that Betsy Blair and Sarah did not see the same man. Instead of lying, had Liggett told the judge that the man walking down 300 North only had on muddy clothing, then the judge would not have associated the man with murder. Again, Liggett can't claim that when he's drafting the affidavit that he relied on false description provided by a different investigator. Yeah, it was him. And he has lied. He has lied. And that's shocking. So that's the conclusion. Just goes through it all again. Because they like doing that. They like going through it all again. Okay, so let's move on to the Audi Nights in Westville. Now, this is the I'm just going to get rid of all these windows with all these cars on. All right. Okay. Audi Nights in Westville. So Westville is the prison that Richard Allen is being held at. I'm just going to plug in my computer because it's going to die. Just a second. Got about 20 charges on this desk. I have to get the right one. Is that the right one? Yes, it is. Right. Okay, we are back. Okay. After his arrest, Richard Allen was forced to be housed in Westville Correctional Facility based upon a safekeeping order. On April 3rd, 2023, two of the transport guards walking Richard to and from his visit prominently displayed multiple patches on their Department of Corrections uniform. The top patch, "In Odin We Trust," was displayed under their embroidered name tags on the right side of their Department of Corrections uniform shirt. Are they allowed to just put patches on their uniforms? Might get anyway. On the left side of the dock uniform shirt were two patches. The lower of the two patches consisted of a partial American flag and interlocking triangles. The interlocking triangles is a common symbol for those involved in the pagan Odinite religion. Above this American flag stroke interlocking triangle patch was a patch that proclaimed "I hate people." Below are images of these patches. In spite of the fact that over 5 months, from November 2022 to April 3rd, 2023, Richard Allen's defense team had been able to bring in their phones when visiting Richard Allen, after Richard's defense team showed photographs of a decrepit Richard Allen at Westville. Warden Gallipo apparently issued an order that Richard's defense team were no longer allowed to bring in their phones. Because Richard's defense team were no longer able to bring in their phones, the defense team was not able to take photographs or video of these patches after April the 3rd. So have they got videos or photographs of them before this? Therefore, the defence is providing affidavits from members of Richard Allen's defence team that viewed these patches on multiple occasions. Here are the patches worn by the guards. All right. So at the time, April 3rd, defence were fully aware of the Odinite involvement in the murders, but law enforcement would likely not have known. An undercover state trooper who is familiar with hate groups, runes, and Odinism stated that interlocking triangles are associated with the Odinist belief system. Okay. In Odin we trust. Okay. I hate people. I want that one. Extra patches are not allowed, but some facilities are more lenient than others, I suppose. Okay. The first time that Richard Allen's defence team noticed Sergeant Jones and Sergeant Robinson, and the patches shown above, they wore on their dock uniforms, was on April the 3rd. So the first time they noticed was on April the 3rd. This also coincides. What? First time that Richard's defence team noticed, and the patches shown above. Okay. They were also coincides with the time frame that Richard Allen's mental health began to take a steep decline. From that point forward, these two guards seemed inseparable from Richard Allen. Ordinary Correctional Officer Robinson and Jones would walk Richard Allen to and from his attorney's visits, as well as on one occasion when Richard visited his wife, always wearing these embroidered patches. For a period, Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones were also videotaping Richard Allen. If this is true, this is truly shocking. Truly shocking. Were videotaping Richard Allen and his interaction with his attorneys. This ended only upon complaint by Richard's attorneys after several visits. Additionally, Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones were always close enough to Richard to be assured that Richard did not feel comfortable talking to his attorneys or his wife without knowing that these ordinary guards were within earshot of everything that he would tell his lawyers or his wife. If it's true that Odinism is associated with white supremacy, then this would not have been allowed, period. Yeah, but if the jail was really lenient and they let people put patches on, maybe people didn't really know that this was a white supremacy group. So, I don't know. Max Baker and Matt Hoffman have both been a part of Richard Allen's defence team since December 2022 and have met Richard on several occasions. Paragraph 10 of Max Baker's affidavit, so that's Exhibit 115, provides insight into some of what was going on at Westville with Odinist guards Jones and Robinson. During one memorable visit on May 4th, myself, Attorney Baldwin and Attorney Rossi met with Richard Allen to discuss matters involving the case. At this time, Richard Allen was in a mental and physical state of deterioration and was nearly non-communicative. During the visit, Richard Allen repeatedly asked whether or not his wife was okay and if his family was okay. He claimed on a couple of occasions that they were going to kill him. When asked who he was referring to as they, Richard Allen responded by saying the guys with the Odin patches. Up to this point in the legal process, Richard Allen's defence team had never mentioned Odinites or Odinism to Richard Allen, either directly or indirectly. The first time I am aware of any mention of Odinite involvement to Richard Allen was during a visit on August 25th, 2023, when Kathy Allen attended and a discussion occurred between attorney and client regarding ties to the crime scene. There's a video out on Odinism in prisons, is there? Where at? He's a cult leader and they're now protecting him. That's an interesting take on it. That's not how the attorneys are seeing it. Ball State University did a study on resurgence of the KKK in Indiana, and it's become increasingly popular in recent years. It's the same here. Not with the KKK, but with like the really far right, like incredibly racist people. It's on the rise here. It has been for a long time, actually. Like there's various groups, like is it the EDL, and don't know whether that's died a death now or not, but yeah, there's a bunch of them, like neo-Nazi stuff as well. Okay, as of August 10th, 2023, the defense finally revealed to Jerry Holman, one of the main investigators, quote unquote, on this case. That is, the defense knew that the evidence exposed the high likelihood that Odinites committed these murders by laying out the evidence right in front of Holman. Up until that time, the defense had strategically played dumb about possessing any knowledge of the Odinite involvement. This strategy was in place for many reasons. However, the defense finally revealed its knowledge to Jerry Holman on August 10th. 1 week later, during their first attorney visit since August 10th, Sergeant Robinson, as usual, dropped Rick off at the attorney meeting. Sergeant Jones was absent. However, something else was also different on this visit, notably missing from Sergeant Robinson's uniform were the Odinite patches that Richard's defence team had taken note of on every attorney visit since April the 3rd. Okay. Attorneys are going to use this to get him out. Well, they're going to try. Absolutely going to try. They're going to try. Like, the best case scenario would be to get the case dismissed in somewhere. Look at what happened with Barry Morphew. Look at what happened with Barry Morphew. Anybody remember Barry Morphew? What happened in that case? Case dismissed. Right, yes, they can rearrest him in future. So yeah, they're going to try. I did walk, Kelly. That's right, True Crime Utah. Barry Morphew was a nobody case, yeah. That is true. Okay, all right. Perhaps not so coincidentally, after Jerry Holman became aware of the defense team's knowledge of the Odinite involvement in the murders, magically those patches were removed, leaving blank spots where the patches used to be displayed. The defense would remind the court that also, perhaps not so coincidentally, Tony Liggett was the only person that refused to support the transfer of Richard Allen out of Westville when other options, Cass County, were available. Is he in Cass County now? He's actually in Cass County now. Liggett cited that his sole reason for rejecting Richard Allen being moved from Westville, 76 miles away, to Cass County, Logansport, was that he, Liggett, would have difficulty transporting Richard Allen to Delphi from Logansport for hearings and trial, a distance of less than 20 miles. Certainly, state police were available to assist in transport. That's a really weak excuse. That's very weak. Okay. Yeah, Liggett refused to agree to the transport, leaving Richard Allen in Westville, guarded by Odinites. When factoring everything contained in this memorandum, Liggett's objection to removing Richard Allen to Cass County over transportation's concerns is troubling. It is troubling, especially when the patches were moved after the T-pause. I thought that the judge had agreed that he could be moved to Cass County. Have I made that up? I'm sure I've heard that they agreed to that. Like, why is it Tony Liggett's decision? Isn't it the judge's decision? Anyway, also filed contemporaneously, I can't say that word, with the Franks motion and memorandum is the defence's emergency request to transport Richard Allen out of Westville to the Cass County Jail, despite Tony Liggett's objection to the same, as a defense has legitimate concerns of Richard's safety once this motion and memorandum are filed. Why would Ordinites kill 2 girls? Well, this is the $6 million question. Apparently, according to this defense team here, because it's a ritualistic sacrifice. But anyway, beyond Sergeant Jones and Sergeant Robinson wearing in ordinary trust patches, what else links them to Ordinism? God knows. All right, Sergeant Jones and Sergeant Robinson's relationship with Ordinism went beyond the patches that they each proudly displayed. Okay, Sergeant Robinson, on his Facebook page, Sergeant Robinson does not hide his devotion to Ordinism. We don't know his first name, so we can't look him up. They haven't given his first name. On June 25th, 2023, Robinson posted a photo of what the defense would call an altar featuring horns, antlers, and Thor's hammer, and a dish sitting atop with some type of animal fur, with various runes decorating the outer edge of the dish. All these items were placed in what appears to be a circular wooden platter. It appears that Sergeant Jones liked Sergeant Robinson's Odin altar post. Sergeant Robinson's altar to Odin is similar to an altar to Odin posted by Brad Holder. As stated by Max Baker in his affidavit, Sergeant Robinson was involved. I'm yawning. Was involved in transporting Richard to most, if not all, of his attorney visits. Sergeant Robinson always wore his Odin patches. However, that changed following Holman's contentious August 10th deposition. In that deposition, it's been blah, blah, blah. We've seen that. Okay, Holman begins getting called out by the defense for Unified Command's incompetent handling of the Odin aspect of the investigation. It's also at that point in the deposition that the defense began asking critical questions concerning the way that Unified Command handled the investigation of Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, and Elvis Fields. And if you don't know who those guys are, go back and watch my other live streams, especially yesterday's, because we went deep into Patrick Westfall, Johnny Messer, and Elvis Fields. You will note that nowhere in this deposition did the defense reveal to Holman that the defense was aware that Sergeant Robinson and Sergeant Jones were wearing in Odin We Trust patches. Attorney Rossi and defense team member Max Baker visited Richard Allen on August 17th, 7 days after the deposition with Holman, and it became obvious that the defense was aware. Okay, we've read this. We know they took the patches off. Okay. The defense team has no direct knowledge as to whether Jerry Holman or anyone from the Unified Command contacted Sergeant Robinson or anyone else from Westville to alert them that Rick's defense team were fully aware that evidence supported Odinists being involved in the murders. However, it's certainly a curiosity that deserves attention and consideration. It does. As Max Baker also describes in his affidavit, Sergeant Robinson was always within a few feet of Richard Allen during Richard's meetings with his wife, Kathy. The 2 visits that Richard had with his wife were without the hustle and bustle and noise of other inmates during their visitation. While Warden Gallipo may claim that Westville was doing Richard a favour by allowing him privacy with his wife, the defence views it differently. With no other inmates in the room was completely quiet. Sergeant Robinson could hear everything that Richard told his wife. Certainly, Robinson and Jones stood close enough to Richard to intimidate Richard from talking openly and honestly to his wife about what was going on at Westville. Well, we know that, they don't get privacy. Then, privacy isn't a thing in prisons, is it? But the thing that concerns me is not being given privacy to talk to his attorneys. Surely that's illegal. Aren't suspects allowed to talk to their attorneys in private? Isn't that a thing? Attorney-client privilege, isn't that a thing? Anyway, Additionally, in their combined 50-plus years of practicing criminal defence, attorneys Baldwin and Rossi have never had their purported confidential attorney visits videotaped with a handheld camcorder. No, that is very weird. Surely that's illegal. Surely. Sergeant Jones and Sergeant Robinson began April 3rd videotaping Richard Allen's interactions. So what were they doing before this? Why did all this start on April the 3rd? What, was it all fine before that? Anyway, particularly outrageous was the fact that Richard Allen was required to face the camcorder from 10 feet away through a glass. That's... Why didn't they object? I mean, I suppose they did eventually, but that means that Richard's mouth was being videotaped. Richard was not able to talk freely to his attorneys and say things like, they are stating that if I don't tell my wife that I'm guilty, then they say they're going to harm my wife. If Richard were to say anything like that, it would be on video. Remember, Richard Allen continuously asked the defense team if his wife was okay and if his family was okay. Do you think so? The recording of the attorneys would be basis alone for tossing the case out. It's pretty concerning. If that really, really happened, that is really concerning. The defense has obtained video from the prison. One of the videos that we obtained show the aftermath of something that happened to Richard Allen. Find attached a still shot of Richard Allen taken from a video that Westville produced. The defense does not have the exact date, but the video indicates that the video was taken between May 26th and May 30th. How doesn't a video have a date on? The still shot is attached to this memorandum and filed as Exhibit 121. The defense is not sure exactly what happened to Richard that caused him to look the way depicted in the still shot, whether it was self-harm or something else. The fact that Richard is being watched by Odinites and the evidence strongly supports Odinite involvement in the murders caused great concern for the defense in terms of Rick's safety. Why? What happened to him? Does anybody know? Additionally, in Matt Hoffman's affidavit, you will find that the last hearing on June 15th, Rick was consistently pleading with the guards not to shock him. Please don't shock me. Please don't shock me. Please don't shock me. Matt Hoffman indicated that Rick made that comment in front of multiple guards and in front of multiple members of Rick's defense team. That is bad. This is bad. Sergeant Jones's Facebook reveal his ties to Odinism. Find attached an image. Exhibit 122. As you can see, the interlocking triangles that appear on Sergeant Jones's patches also appear in this photo. You will notice a rune in the lower left-hand corner of that photo. It's hard to see because it's in black. Also remember that Sergeant Jones liked... Okay. The defense would request the court to review Max Baker's affidavit to learn of Sergeant Jones's involvement in guarding Richard Allen. It's nearly identical to Sergeant Robinson's. Okay. They don't teach you in law school what to do when your client who is accused of murder is being guarded by members of a religious cult whose members' evidence strongly supports who were actual murderers. Yeah, this is where we are. At some point in time, coincidences cease to be coincidences. The fact that Liggett did not want Richard Allen to be removed. So is Liggett an Ordinist? Is that what we're saying here? Is that what we're saying? Did not want, and Richard Allen's just the patsy. Is that what they're getting at? So didn't want him to be removed. The fact that Ordinites are guarding Richard Allen is very concerning, at least curious, blah, blah, blah. So we know all of that. Okay, part 5. This is only a short part. I think it's mainly like a conclusion, really, but we'll read it. Okay, Richard Allen has no ties to Ordinism or any religious cult and has no ties to the crime scene. Okay, Tony Liggett has testified under oath that there's no DNA linking Richard Allen to the crime scene. Liggett further has testified that he's unaware of anything that links Richard to the crime scene through his phone, computers, or electronics. Liggett has further testified that he is unaware of any evidence that links Richard Allen to any weird religious cult group. So this is Liggett's own testimony. Jerry Holman has testified to the following. There is no DNA linking Richard Allen to the crime scene. No data extracted from Richard Allen's phone that connects him to the murders. No data extracted from Libby's phone that connects Richard to the murders. No evidence that Richard Allen is or was connected to any other suspects in this case. No evidence found on social media that connects Richard Allen to the murders. No evidence extracted from Richard Allen's computers that connects him to the murders. No fingerprint evidence that connects Richard Allen to the murders. So those are the references there. This section is very short because there is simply no evidence linking Richard Allen to the murders. I think we got the message. However, in his affidavit for search warrant, Liggett attempts to drum up as much connectivity as he could muster between Richard Allen and the murders to convince the judge that it's more likely than not evidence of the murders will be found in Richard Allen's house and vehicles. Remember, this document is to get the judge to have a Franks hearing, which is regarding search warrants and basically lying to get a search warrant, lying, deceiving, concealing, etc., to get a search warrant. Okay. What about the bullet? They've not mentioned the bullet. Is the bullet a problem for them? So let's not mention the bullet, because that's a problem for the defense. Okay. All right. To convince judge that it's more likely than not that evidence of the murders will be found in Richard Allen's house and vehicles. Here, essentially, is what Liggett swore and confirmed linked Richard Allen to the crime. Richard was on the trail sometime between 1:30 and 3:30, but Richard himself said that in 2017. He did himself say that. Changed it in 2022, as we discussed earlier. Richard owns a blue coat. He does. They found a blue coat. He has a blue coat. But who here has a blue coat? Do I have a blue coat? I don't have a blue coat. I've had a blue coat in the past. I don't have a blue coat now. Richard owns guns. Okay, lots of people own guns. Richard owns knives. Lots of people own knives. Liggett's claim, while withholding key evidence that a black Ford Focus was parked at the CPS building between 1:30 and 4. Well, we don't know. There's nobody has said that there was a black Ford Focus. Other cars, as we discussed earlier, but not a Ford Focus. Not even a car that really looks like a Ford Focus. Not really. Liggett's claim, while withholding key evidence that Betsy Blair observed a man on the bridge, that Liggett claimed was Richard Allen. So the young man that I don't think was Richard Allen, or at least wasn't Bridge Guy. Liggett's claim, while withholding key evidence that Sarah Carbot observed a man walking down the road that Liggett claims was Richard Allen, and also the same man that Betsy Blair viewed on the high bridge. That's it. That's all. What about the bullet? Are we going to talk about the bullet? Are we going to talk about the bullet? We're going to talk about the bullet? Anybody? You want to talk about the bullet? Anybody? Okay. Okay, that's it, that's all. With all the evidence linking Brad Holder, Patrick Westfall, Elvis Fields, Johnny Messer, and Rod Abrams to the murders as discussed in part 2. Really, there's no links though. Right, just like there's no links of Richard Allen to the crime scene, like no DNA, no fingerprints, no nothing real. The same can be said of these guys, surely. Or has DNA from other people been found that isn't Richard Allen? We don't know that, do we? We don't know that yet. But if there's no DNA at all at the crime scene, nothing at all, then nothing links anybody. Most men own a blue coat. Blue coat's a very popular colour for a coat. If you think like, like denim, like jean jackets, they're very popular, aren't they? Yeah, the bullet. The bullet. Nobody's talking about the bullet. The defense don't want to talk about the bullet. The bullet's a problem. The bullet's a big problem for them. And the bullet apparently cycled through Richard Allen's gun. However, we talked about this, I don't know which live stream, that the bullet was found in the ground, but there's a loss of chain of custody, at least in the way that the defense described it. That could be a massive problem. Or the defense could have exaggerated the problem with the chain of custody or the photography of the bullet in its way through the chain of custody. Chain of custody in itself can mean that this major piece of evidence is not included in the court. So, Okay. However, 26 days before the election, Liggett made a choice to seek a search warrant for Richard Allen's house based on items 1 to 7 above. Let's run through this list one by one. Single source, of course, of this information is Dan Dullin from the Department of Natural Resources. Therefore, in order to confidently trust that Richard Allen actually... Okay, we're getting... All right. Let's... So this is the person who took the tip. So to confidently trust that Richard Allen actually said he was on the trail between 1:30 and 3:30, as in Liggett's affidavit, Dan Dullin's work product would have to be trusted. Okay, so they're going to claim that Richard didn't say this in 2017. Dear God. All right. Okay. Words matter when talking to someone. For example, if the exchange between Dan Dullin and Richard Allen was this: Richard, we think the girls were abducted between 1:30 and 3:30. Were you on the trail at any point between 1:30 and 3:30 on February? That should be set February 14th. No, February 13th, not February 17th. That should be February 13th. And Richard answered yes. That does not mean that Richard Allen was actually on the trail the entire time between 1:30 and 3:30. However, Dullin could memorialize the exchange as Richard claiming he was on the trail the entire 2-hour span. If so, Dullin's report would be inaccurate. Therefore, Dullin's accuracy in writing reports may need to be considered and scrutinized. The defense does not have to go very far in scrutinizing Dullin's accuracy in report writing. Oh, they're throwing everybody under the bus, aren't they? Everybody. It can start with the report Dullin wrote about his interaction with Richard Allen. The conversation between Richard Allen and Dan Dulling came about when Richard Allen called the tip line to provide the limited information that he, Richard, may have had from his time on the trail that day. Dulling and Richard met at a grocery store in Delphi. Okay. At the conclusion of Dulling's interview with Richard, Dulling prepared his report. Excuse me. However, Dulling screwed up the most basic of tasks, getting the name right. Dulling was so sloppy in drafting this report that he put Richard Allen's name into the system as Rick Allen Whiteman. Before being forced to sell their house and move away from the community that they love because of this horrific allegation, okay, they lived on Whiteman Drive. This is probably the source of Dulling's mistake. Exhibit 123. Okay. Okay. Well, since we can't necessarily trust DNR Dan's accuracy in writing reports, at least there would be a tape recording that would be able to provide the precise words used by Richard Allen. Right? No, wrong. Find Exhibit 124, in which a report provided to the defence in discovery from DNR Dan concerning his interview with Richard Allen. In this report, DNR Dan wrote the following: I checked my audio recordings and cannot find one for him. I will keep looking because I'm sure I recorded every interaction I had relating to my assigned leads. Dear God. Dear God. This is what DNR Dan actually said. Well, actually wrote. Okay, we read this earlier. Okay, Mr. Allen was on the trail between 13:30 and 15:30. So, so either DNR Dan had to assume that or be told that. Practice car at the old Farm Bureau building and walked to the new Freedom Bridge. While at the Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females. He noted one was taller and had brown or black hair. He did not remember description, nor did speak to them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He stated there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead. However, did not pay attention to them. He did not take any photo or video. And then the potential follow-up was, who were the 3 girls walking in the area of Freedom Bridge? So no concerns about Richard and didn't record the interaction. That's bad. The judge is going to have a hard time ignoring this. He really is. Or she, Francis Gull. Can't remember the judge in this case. Okay. Of course, another source of information of what time Richard was on the trails is Richard himself. As discussed previously in this memorandum, Richard Allen told Liggett that he arrived on the trails at noon and left before 1:30. Yes, but that was in 2022. In 2017, he could easily have said, I was there between 1:30 and 3:30. We'll never know because that conversation wasn't recorded. How stupid of DNR Dan. Surely they should record all interactions. Dear me, we could have got this cleared up very easily. This was information that Liggett concealed from the judge. Richard's black. Well, he actually did conceal it. He didn't include that from in the PCA or the search warrant. Richard's black Ford Focus was not parked at the CPS building at 2:15, according to Betsy Blair. This was also information that Liggett concealed. Well, yeah, Betsy Blair said it was a Ford Comet. Liggett also failed to inform the judge that DNR Dan cannot be trusted to perform the most basic of tasks when conducting an investigation. Liggett swearing under oath that Richard Allen was on the trails between 1:30 and 3:30 based upon Dan Dulling's lost and unrecorded interview. I can't believe that they didn't record that. I can't believe I can't believe that they didn't record. That's just insane. May not be the best benchmark for the judge to rely on. Unfortunately, Judge Dana would not know the unreliability of Dulling's report because Liggett never let him know. Richard Allen owns a blue coat as millions of other men do. Richard owned guns as millions of other men do. Richard owned knives as millions of other men do. His black Ford Focus was parked at the CPS building. As the court knows now, by 2:15, Betsy Blair observed a vehicle parked at the blah, blah, blah. Okay, not a black Ford Focus, but a non-black Comet. And also the other people, we had a PT Cruiser, we had a smart car. We didn't have a Ford Focus. So was there a Ford Focus there? We'll never know. We'll never know. Betsy Blair observed the man on the bridge. Okay, so we know about this. The young man. Okay, that was wrong. Observed the man wearing a tan coat and muddy pants. This man does not meet the description of the man that Betsy Blair. Okay, there's a lot of problems here. There's a lot of problems here. So this is a conclusion. Richard Allen is not connected to these horrific murders in any way. And I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. Liggett attempted to convince the judge that evidence of the murders would be found in Rick's home over 5 years after the girls were slain, based upon the 7 enumerated reasons identified above. If Liggett had been honest, then Judge Dana would not have signed the warrant. Liggett wasn't honest, though. Richard's lack of any connection whatsoever to the crime scene, combined with Liggett's lies and concealment, merits a Frank's hearing. I think they should have a Frank's hearing. I think whatever it takes to fully investigate this, it needs to be done. And I can't wait for the prosecution's rebuttal. I can't wait. So this is just the legal stuff talking about a Frank's hearing. This final conclusion. So if the trial court concludes or omits facts or false statements where necessary for the finding of probable cause, the trial court should set a hearing at the defendant's request. I don't think the judge can ignore this, in my opinion. It is very long and very detailed, yeah. I'm not going to say that it's all fact, though. It's lots of like, this person on Facebook said this. But there's plenty to concern yourself with here. Does it mean that Richard Allen's innocent? No, it doesn't. But does it mean there are questions? Yeah, I think it does. Andrew Baldwin and Bradley Rossi. And therein lies the end of this colossal feat. Colossal feat. There we go. All done. Another 3-hourer. Another 3-hourer. But we got to the end. I did it. Yay. I did it. If the evidence against Richard Allen was extremely weak or improperly gathered, the defence would hammer those angles. Instead, they have written a cheap novel based upon gossip, rumour, and social media scraps. A lot of what they said about Brad Holder specifically was, yeah, it was social media scraps. It was. But there's some stuff here that is concerning. That is, look, if somebody is awaiting trial, they have to have a fair process from start to finish. And the procedure, legal procedure, is there for a reason. So if things are not following procedure, that's a problem. He could walk because of this. He could. He could. People have walked for less. But we need to wait for the prosecution's rebuttal, I think. They were under a lot of pressure to come up with a suspect. They were. But why Richard Allen? Why him? Like, if they truly have nothing apart from a bullet, like the entire case hangs on a bullet. Okay. I mean, that's bizarre. But there's nothing in this that pins any of the Ordinites directly to the scene that we've seen in this 136 pages. So we wait. We wait. And I'm now going to go and see what all this nonsense is in the Summer Wells case. The bones at Fred Hill's? What? Yeah, I don't believe it. But anyway. Okay. All right, guys. I am going to go. It's 11 p.m. here. Another 3 hour. A bullet at a crime scene is huge. Yeah, it is. It is huge. But if that bullet hasn't gone through the proper chain of custody, even that is a problem. Go and have a cuppa. I might well do that. I might well do that. Yeah, Elvis is sketch. Elvis is very sketch. That confession, though. Where did that come from? That's true. Millions of men with guns haven't had bullets turn up at a crime scene. That's very true. That's very true. There's nothing here in this 136 pages that makes me think that Richard Allen should not be a suspect. But there are a lot of problems and they have to be addressed. They have to be addressed, if only for due process. So we wait. We wait. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in yet again. And thank you for the donations. Thanks, as always, to the mods. And I will see you tomorrow. Probably not for this case, because I'm absolutely exhausted with this case right now. So I'm going to go and see what all this bone nonsense is about with the Summer Wells case. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you very soon. Bye, guys.